Today I don't have to go in for chemo. This is the first time in 6 months. No chemo today, yay! So I'm going to do this week 7 videos on kind of how to get through chemotherapy, maybe give some people out there a little help if you need, and if it works. Everybody's experience going through chemo is different. I've been on ABVD treatment, which is fairly common treatment for people who are going through chemotherapy for Hodgkin's, and it's really awesome because I'll talk about it another time. But anyway, back to nutrition and exercise. I've had a lot of trouble going through chemo with nausea, vomiting a lot during the actual chemo, a little bit at home, and dealing with fatigue. So number one thing is hydration, and I drink lots and lots of water, about 2.5 gallons a day. Most people are probably not going to need that much. I am a fairly tall person and fairly active, so I probably use a lot more water anyway than the average person. But one of the things I noticed was when I could still go up and do some work at one of the jobs where I was working all by myself, the water there was a little off. The building is about 100 years old, so the water is kind of chemically tasting, which I never noticed before I was going through chemo. But during chemo, you know, flavors, smells change a lot. So, anyhow. Shh, phone. Okay, so one of the things that I found worked was bringing bottled water. I'm not a big fan of bottled water because, you know, save the earth. Why would you do a lot of plastic when you don't have to? Anyhow, bottled water though, it has a fairly uniform taste. And if you can find bottled waters that are to your liking, you can go small. For me, big is better because I drink a lot, and plus it lets me know like how much I've been drinking. I didn't really do the whole buy my own bottle and then bring it with me, just because it's been too much effort, and like I said, I've been dealing with a lot of fatigue. But you know how people talk about cleansing diets and things? Well, the number one thing to get those chemo drugs out of your body after they've done their job is hydration. The number one thing to keep your body working and your kidneys working and your liver functioning properly and everything just moving through well, water, water, water. So if you're having problems staying hydrated, I got a couple of things that you can do. One of them is get some kind of electrolyte solution. You can also get Gatorade. You don't have to have a pediatric solution. I find that the Gatorade had too much. It was too strongly flavored for me, and there's a bit of a sourness to it, and sour just kills me right now. So pediatric solution is great. Take it, fill your glass half full with this, fill the rest of it up with water, then drink it. It is the easiest thing to get down, honest to goodness. Also, normally I would just go with unflavored, but this stuff is really nasty when it's unflavored. Get something that has a flavor. Another option is if you're not quite so sick and you're trying to keep fluids down, you can do juices. Cranberry juice is my favorite, but a mixed berry works. Once again, don't do orange juice or lemonade or anything that has a lot of sourness to it if you're having indigestion, because it can cause a lot of problems. At least it did for me. So if you do have Hodgkin's and you're going through chemo, you probably already know, don't drink any alcohol because it can cause a lot of pain with swollen lymph nodes, which I have a funny story to tell Chris Hansen now after all these years about having a cough for 10 weeks, and I attributed it to one thing, and then I attributed it to carbon monoxide poisoning because I had that, and now I found out it's probably because I've had Hodgkin's for a really long time. So that's for another day though. But also stay away from caffeine because it can dehydrate you, and you need to stay hydrated. However, if you have a migraine, guess what works that isn't a, you know, medication over the counter? Yeah, caffeine. So, you know, coffee would really work if you have a migraine. For me, I can't do caffeine. I'm caffeine sensitive, but guess what else works? I would make up hot chocolate. I'd use about between 2 to 4 squares of this. And the nice thing about this really dark chocolate that Lindt makes is it's pretty low in sugar. So one of the few things I can taste while I've been going through chemo is sugar, really strongly. And I don't like it much because it's all I can taste sometimes. So having the dark chocolate, melting it down, I'd stir it up with some milk just to make it a little more mild, and it would take care of my migraine, which is great. You know, nature's cures are sometimes awesome. And speaking of nature's cures, if you're taking any supplements or eating any particular foods or changing your diet significantly while you're going through chemo, make sure you talk to your doctor or to a nutrition counselor, because some of those things that you eat, like if they're really high in potassium or something like that, it can change your blood counts. It can affect the other drugs that you're taking to help with nausea or help with other side effects. So make sure you talk to your doctor first, because you don't want to fight with your treatment, and you certainly don't want to cause harm. Some of the drugs I'm on really kick up the possibility of me having bleeding incidences going on inside, like, you know, in my intestinal bleeding or something like that. So there are certain things that can really increase that risk. Make sure if you're taking any herbal supplements, if you're eating any special foods like kale or anything like that, make sure you talk to your doctor and okay it so that you don't hurt yourself in the process. Okay, but as far as herbal remedies, this is another of my favorite things for taking care of nausea, and this works best when it's mild. When it gets more severe, I have to take medications, which I'll talk about later, but peppermint tea, this is pretty good. I was just sucking on peppermint drops, but I found out as I went along the peppermint oil was really started to burn my mouth. If you're dealing with mouth sores, you'll know what I'm talking about. But I switched over to peppermint tea, and then I just diluted it a lot, which might sound gross, but it's easier to drink when it's diluted. And then I would add a little bit of crystallized ginger. I would have just gotten a ginger peppermint combination if I could, but my sisters couldn't find any for me. So they got me the crystallized ginger, and at first I thought, oh, that's not what I wanted. But a little bit of sweetness doesn't hurt, and there's not a lot of sugar on these. So you stick that in, boil the water with this in it, and that kind of gets the ginger flavor moving throughout the water. Add your peppermint, stick it in there, cover it, you know, and let it steep for a while, and then let it cool off. It's easier to eat and drink things when the room temperature. If you're having a lot of problems with nausea, stay away from hot. Go for either cool or room temperature. Trust me on that. So, as far as eating goes, it's really important to get lots of protein, and I'm going to talk about a couple different sources. Number one, I'm going to talk about my favorite vegan source of protein, which is garbanzo beans. The downside of this is they come in this size, and you don't want to be sticking a lot of leftovers in the fridge and heating them up and things like that. So you can also make it from scratch, but like I said, fatigue is hard on me right now. So garbanzo beans. They're great fried. You can make them into your own, I can't remember what it's called. Yeah, you blend it up into a dip of sorts. Someday I'll remember. Chemo brain. Anyhow, my favorite thing to do with them is rinse them, drain it, put a little bit of olive oil on it, stick it on a very flat sheet that's covered with foil, and roast them under the broiler for about, like 10-15 minutes. It depends on your roaster. and season it with a little bit of cumin, which is nice. So great vegan source of protein. The non-vegan sources, eggs. I couldn't do eggs. I was hoping that I could, but it just made me sick if I did straight eggs. I could mix them into things and cook it and be fine, but just straight egg whites, egg yolks, can't do it. However, low-fat, high-protein Greek yogurt was pretty good. After a while, I couldn't eat it. It started to gross me out. But for the first half of chemo, this was a great thing because it's creamy, it's smooth, it's easy to swallow, it was a nice flavor. And I like just the unsweetened plain yogurt. Also, cheese. You can go with mozzarella sticks because easy bite size, very sanitary packets, but easier than even the low-fat mozzarella string cheese is if you can find some cheddar. It's softer than the string cheese, so that makes it a little easier to chew it and swallow it and get it down. Snack foods are great, and they're easy. If you like sugar, high chews or something, once again, it's soft, it's chewy, it's mild in flavor, and easy source of energy. I like the fruit cups. Mandarin oranges are not as sour as regular oranges, so that was great. Peaches, and my absolute favorite is pears. And these are in juice, so I can just drink the juice and then eat the fruit. Also, applesauce. So my sister got me some that had cherries in it, but the cherries were too much. Stick with the mild stuff. Once again, if you're nauseated. Peanut butter crackers. Snack chips. If you can find any graham crackers or anything in these little packets, it's easy. And if you can't eat it all, get a little bag clip. Makes it simple. Also nuts. These are one of those things that if you have problems and it causes indigestion, stay away from it. But I've got cashews, almonds. I really love peanuts, but I had to stop that halfway through because just the straight peanuts started to cause problems. And I recommend sticking with a high variety of foods if you can, as much as possible, so that nothing afterwards reminds you too much of chemo. I know that's been a problem for some people. If you start eating your favorite food over and over again and you really like it and whatnot, and then afterwards you start to hate it because you associate it with all the discomfort that comes with chemo. But also great are instant foods, and I'm not a big fan of them, but right now it's the best thing. So ramen, and one of the best things about ramen is you can just snap that puppy in half and use only half of it if you want, or the whole thing. You don't have to follow the recipe on the back. You can always put extra water in, dilute it down. I like to take a bunch of water, like a nice quart pan or whatnot, even bigger sometimes. Stick some vegetables that are finely chopped, some of those frozen packs that you can just dump however much you want and then put it back in. And boil those vegetables to death because they're easier to eat. And being able to eat anything right now is great. So boil the vegetables to death, stick in the ramen, boil that, add the flavoring, and you've got this nice, very kind of easy to digest meal. It has a little bit of fat, has a little bit of vegetables. It's better than just straight sugar water, although straight sugar water is probably the easiest thing on your guts right now. Also, on days of chemo, dinner, self-made, yeah, microwave meals, they work. And if you can get stuff that has a protein source, once again, it's good. I love tuna, by the way. I can eat a whole one of these things. But I know if there's some other meats that come in cans, like seasoned ham that aren't so great, but tuna, I've been able to eat it, and it's been nice on my stomach. So you need lots of protein, by the way. Did I say that before? I'll say it again. Eat lots of protein. So on the really bad days, the days when I don't think I can keep anything down, and even the juices give me trouble, I have another source for you. So instant potatoes. Now, once again, you don't have to follow the recipe. You can make your own potato soup. You can make potato broth. You can thin it way, way down. And it is easy to digest. It's very palatable as long as you get something mild in flavor, like just the straight potatoes, butter, things like that. Stay away from things that have a lot of flavor like onions or bacon, things like that. And that, once again, this is the easiest thing for me to eat. Like I said, you can go from potato water to potato soup to potato mashed. It just depends on how much water you add, or, you know, if you're adventurous, you can add milk. This I didn't like so much. This is a lot like the potato water, but the main ingredient in this cream soup is maltodextrin. So it really is just like straight sugar water with salt and a little flavoring, and I just thought it was kind of gross, but it might work for you. Canned soup is great. Chicken noodle, anything mild. You might want to stay away from tomato because it's, once again, acidic. Also, instant breakfast cereals. So this is, of course, cooked cereal. And this one is mixed grain. It has oats, it has flaxseed, it has some other stuff in it. I really liked this one. And once again, you can add more water than it asks for and just make it into kind of gruel. Like baby food, yes, but guess what? What goes down is very likely to come up, and the easier it goes both ways, the nicer it is on your throat. So that's my little thing about nutrition. Small meals, bland food. Squash, by the way, is a great vegetable, really mild. After you finish eating, make sure you're going to stay upright for about 2 hours. Don't go to, if you do go to sleep, make sure you're on like something that's going to prop you up, because if you have any indigestion or acid reflux, it's going to help that from happening and yeah, making it worse. Also with exercise, stay as active as you can. I used to walk my dogs for 2 hours a day, outside every day, and then I'd do yoga, and then halfway through with treatment I couldn't do yoga anymore, because anytime I tip down and my, invert, it's just like everything wants to come up. Yeah, walking is still really good. Sometimes on days like today when it's really cold, I just walk up and down these stairs, and I'm not above crawling up and down these stairs if I ever have to get to that point, which I haven't, and hopefully I don't have to get more treatments or anything, so I won't have to reduce myself to crawling, but I'm not above it, like I said. Stay active, active, active. Do it, even if it's a pain in the butt. And there are days when you may want to just cry because you're so tired. Try walking around the house, do a little side-to-side step, high school dancing in your room to music you like. Anything to keep you moving, anything to keep you going. And yeah, there will be days that are really hard, but you can do it. And good luck. And so that's my little thing about nutrition and exercise. And if you're younger, you might be able to do some real solid exercise like running or cycling. I haven't been able to be up to that, but maybe it'll be easier for you. Maybe it'll be harder. And you don't have to feel ashamed if it's really difficult, because this isn't an easy thing to go through. And as always, if you're having a really, really hard time, call up your doctor, call up a nurse. There's a lot of services out there to help people who are going through chemo. and check into it. I know that there's things like Meals on Wheels. People will come and bring you food. I've been lucky because my sister has done most of the cooking in the evening, and so she helps take care of me that way. You do want to avoid having to cook anything that you have to do a lot of preparation with. You don't want to cut yourself. That's a big danger. You don't want to eat a lot of raw foods, anything that can have pesticides on it or dirt, and you don't want to be preparing it and then get scratched and introduce yourself into some kind of infecting agent at this time when your immune system's low. So stay strong, and I think next up tomorrow I'll talk about some of the medications I've been on. So that might be useful for you, or it might just be interesting if you have anyone you know going through treatments. So once again, I'm on ABVD treatment, and chemo is different for everyone. Good luck.